It's almost like a junction of different paths here. Into the mountain, in the rock, you'll see carved doorways. Once you get into it, you really see that it's massive. Good afternoon, guys, and welcome back to Northern Journeys. I'm standing here nearby the coastal town of Langesund, looking out on the sea. And beyond the stretch of land here is a World War II coastal fortress built by the German army during the occupation of Norway. We're going to look at this fort, talk a little bit about the history of the fort and why Hitler and Nazi Germany was so paranoid about garrisoning, protecting, defending Norway. Let's go. It's just been raining, very autumny, storming, very wet. But I'm very fortunate to have this day to go out and show you guys the remains of this fort. Talking about Second World War in a YouTube format is, as you might guess, sometimes a bit difficult, because it is a problem on YouTube, that on history YouTube in particular, that we can't really talk about certain periods of our history because of money. How are we going to move past Second World War and the Nazism in Norway if we can't talk about the past? As you walk along this coastal path, you'll just see dozens of these little bricked up or concreted up doorways that provide access to the network of bunkers, trenches, rooms, ammunition stores, etc. Difficult to tell because it's all been demolished after the 90s, I think. There's a bit of a debate in Norway whether we should keep these World War II concrete structures and always should just leave them to wither away. Like the German army occupied Norway for 5 solid years, had a massive building program during that time that was used by the Norwegian army until way up into the 90s, many places. In 1940, the captured Norwegian coastal batteries and forts were hopelessly underdeveloped. So, the German Navy and Army had to start from scratch. However, German plans and placements of new positions was very much based off pre-existing plans made by the Norwegian armed forces before the war. The program of new batteries and coastal forts was in full swing by 1941. Southern Norway saw the greatest concentrations of forts and batteries. After the success of the invasion of France, Germany captured a lot of artillery that they brought to Norway. The cannons have long since been removed, obviously, but you see here the circular structure of the gun placement. All of these designs, all of these trenches, bunkers, networks were part of the standardized Regelbau, which was a sort of pre-made, out-of-the-box sort of design for the German army to put up in its occupied territories. And what strikes me here is that they obviously had to customize the way they laid out their bunkers and so on to the landscape. There's almost like a junction of different paths here, and into the mountain, in the rock, you'll see carved doorways. It really makes you want to go into these corridors and these tunnels to explore them. It's not until you actually start walking into the woods around there and you start seeing the extent of the networks of the trenches and of the bunkers and of all the passages and doorways all over. And once you get into it, you really see that it's massive. the sad truth is really that many of these places were not built by sort of paid labor. It was built by slave labor. There was an upwards of probably like 100,000 Soviet POVs in Norway during the war, and many died in that cruel process of building forts. But another fact is that the Norwegian building industry and entrepreneurs were actually involved in helping the German army build a lot of infrastructure, barracks, etc. during the war. And there was actually a boom in the Norwegian building industry. The German army was expending a hell of a lot of resources trying to build roads, barracks, coastal forts, other kinds of defensive installations. So why put so much effort into guarding Norway from a possible Allied incursion? Yeah, good question. By 1943, there were about 380,000 German troops in Norway. Think about that. That's like 1 soldier per 10 civilians, right? And they built this massive network of coastal defenses. So the Allies might have thought, well, let's keep them here. Let's make sure they don't get to Germany, the Eastern Front, the Western Front. They stay up here and they don't make any difference in the larger scale. Probably a wiser decision than to invade Norway and to put these troops and these garrisons and these coastal forts into action. So I think essentially what happened is the Allies launched a series of raids on Norway. They were called Claymore, I think, and archery, British raids. Raids that signaled to Hitler that the Brits and the Allies were still interested in possibly making a landing in Norway, or at least sabotaging German military actions in Norway during the war, possibly interrupting the iron trade with Sweden. So Hitler, the German army, decided that they had to increase the spending, really make Norway into a complete fortress part of the Atlantic Wall. This is one of 3 forts along this part of the Norwegian coast. The other one is Rakke, I think, and Oddane, which are also partially demolished, and the traces of them are mostly gone. Now, these forts, they never saw action over the period of 5 years. Many of them never saw any actions. This one didn't, and this was a gigantic waste of resources if you look at it, but it also acted as a deterrent. Sites such as Tangen fort makes you wonder what Norway's jagged coastline would have looked like if the Germans had been able to fully implement their building program of coastal defenses. It would have looked like a grey Swiss cheese, decidedly. Today's crumbling grey concrete ruins of all sizes hide a brutal fortress mentality, never seen the like, along Europe's longest coastline. Once you can look past the vegetation and find all the placements, the gun placements, the trenches inland, and you can see them connected to these outward guns, you realize that this is such a massive fort. So anyway, thanks for watching this World War II episode in Northern Journeys, and I'm going to make more World War II content. Until next time, adieu, farewell, goodbye.